next level and it's off to the bayous, boy. This would have been a fantastic opportunity to bring back Sheriff J.W. Pepper. I mean, we can have Jaws here, why not bring back everyone's favourite southern racist? What a truly missed opportunity it was to not have him running around screaming something about black Russians during these levels.
There's even another vehicle level in this area. Wouldn't it have been great if Sheriff Pepper tagged along? I mean, am I the only one who thinks that would be great?
There's a boss fight level here where Bond takes on Yayakov. This is one of my least favourite levels of the game, and, like I mentioned earlier, it looks as though it features aborted models and settings from a Star Wars game or something. This game goes very, very sci-fi at times, and it's one of the more off-putting things for me.
Bond films have never been this sci-fi, and while I feel like it's acceptable to do that in the video game series, it takes it just too far here, to the extent that I don't even feel like I'm playing a Bond video game at some points.
Bye, Yayakov.
The vehicle level that succeeds the boss fight is incredible, though. Chasing a tanker being commandeered by Jaws, Bond goes racing down a motorway, and at times, if you build up enough speed, I swear you transcend all of time and space. Jaws is again neutralised, and it's back to Scotland. Again! All this back and forth over the Atlantic. Mobile phones did exist in 2005, you know. Serena reappears here, and it's back to Peru for the next level. Jeez, there are a lot of levels in this game, aren't there? I mean, I know I shouldn't be complaining about this, but so many of these levels end up being so small and short. I don't see why some of them couldn't just be shoved together. There are like 30-odd levels here when there should really be 20. Anyway, in order to meet with Diavolo, Bond decides to switch places with a race car driver so he can win the race and have a champion's dinner with Diavolo afterwards, which is stupid and makes no sense at all, but hey, if Blofeld didn't recognise Bond in Majesty's Secret Service, maybe Diavolo won't here. It's also a good excuse to have a level that is purely racing. It has very little to do with the story at all, but damn is it fun. Like, it's like the cheat code that allowed you to race on the Enemies Vanquished level in Nightfire. It's just a little thing, but it's a lot of fun, and I like that the game developers even thought it was worth the effort to go this extra mile and give us something like this. Bond wins the race, of course, and heads to meet Diavolo, who recognises Bond. Well, oh shucks, who would have thought it?
By winning that race, you lost your life and hers. Good night.
Prepare to die, Mr. Bond.
You first. You second.
Bond then fights his way through the exact same map as the previous level and makes an escape with Serena, leading into another driving level. But before that, we have one of my favourite humorous moments in the game.
I think we're outnumbered here.
But not entirely out of luck. Forgive me, Q.
An interesting take on this particular level is that you can start out driving the racing car from 2 levels ago, meaning no gadgets for the first section of the level. By now, some of these levels could start feeling a little repetitive, and we're seeing a lot of the same environments being used, so it's nice that things are spiced up a little bit to make each level in some way unique. Serena drops some info about a mine on the other side of town, and Bond jumps on the back of his Triumph Daytona and makes his way over there. I hate this section of the level. I really, really hate this bit. I've loved all the motorbike bits previously, but this bit where you have to drive along the rooftops is just aggravating.
Does anyone else have the same problem that I have with this level? That, you know, you just keep bouncing into things and knocking off and then going down and having to drive all the way back up again just to do the same thing and then fall down, and it's so aggravating. I mean, is it just me? Am I just really crap at this? Like, I lose the will to live.
An hour and 2 broken controllers later, Bond arrives at the mine, is captured by Katia and subjected to a bit of Goldfinger-esque method of death. Diavolo and Katia do leave Bond alone in the room though, which is quite the mistake. It's a shame Zorin didn't relay an important bit of information to Diavolo before he died, specifically, make sure Bond is dead before you leave. Bond escapes of course and goes on to harshly slaughter Diavolo's entire workforce of armed miners before making his way to the control room, blowing the place up and finishing the level by doing a GoldenEye on Serena's helicopter. Quite a lot of GoldenEye references in this game, aren't there?
Okay, this is a message to all Bond video game producers. There are more films in this series than just GoldenEye for you to reference. Just something to, bear in mind for future games.
Where are we going?
Ever been to Moscow?
And now they're going to Russia? Christ, why not just make Diavolo a former student of Alec Trevelyan and be done with it?
007. Diavolo's invaded Red Square with an army of platinum tanks and is advancing on the Kremlin. The Russian army has been mobilized, but Diavolo's nanotechnology is eating through their tanks faster than they can deploy them. You've got to find a way to stop him.
Wow, okay, this is pretty epic. This game definitely wins for biggest ending scenario of a Bond game ever.
Bond eavesdrops on Diavolo, Katia and Jaws, and it turns out Diavolo intends to take over Russia and then the world with his army of platinum tanks and nanobots, and... Actually, wait, hang on a second.
Of course! That's why Jaws is here! Katia is Dolly under a different guise! Oh, God, it all makes so much sense now! God, that is definitely a foolproof explanation for Jaws' presence in this game, and I challenge anyone else to dispute it.
We're firmly back on the we must recreate as much of GoldenEye as possible bandwagon again, driving through Russia in a tank. But this being a post-Dine of the Day pre-Casino Royale Bond adventure, the tank is made of platinum and fires nanobots. But you know what, it's a pretty awesome level actually, where Bond apparently does more damage to the streets of Russia than Diavolo's troops. Bond successfully saves the Kremlin. Funny, if this were 20 odd years ago, he'd probably been trying to destroy it himself. And then when, and I'm not kidding, a helicopter with a giant statue of Diavolo appears, and Bond shoots that down, which causes a giant earthquake or something, and all of Diavolo's tanks and troops disappear?
Honestly, I was fairly indifferent to Diavolo until this. I mean, it's mental and crazy and hilarious that he would have a 60-foot statue of himself built out of platinum and have it helicoptered in just for the very moment he takes power. They're not going to wait for the admin stuff to get out of the way. No, as soon as he achieves power, he wants that statue erected. It must be there on the very second, otherwise, I don't know, oh God, Diavolo, you're so vain. You're quite possibly my favourite Bond villain of a video game up to this point because of this.
Anyway, Bond finds his way into an underground base beneath the Kremlin to find and apprehend the villains. It's lots of fun grappling and shooting and going up and down in this lift before our villains rear their ugly heads, including one final showdown with Jaws. These Jaws boss battles have been truly wonderful, and I've really enjoyed the variety of them. It hasn't just been the same thing over and over. But I am slightly disappointed he's given such a humourless and rather drab send-off. I half expect him to, pop up again somewhere at the end. But alas, this is the last we see of him in this game. But you know what, still, his whole inclusion in this game has been absolutely fantastic. It was great to see a classic Bond villain be a part of a story again. After fun and frolics in the lift, it's a couple of high-octane action levels using an awesome variety of weapons and gadgets. There's no one way to navigate through these last levels. It really is carte blanche to do what you want with what you have, which makes for a really fun and exciting final segment of the game. I'd also like to point out that while I was critical about some of the earlier level designs, these final few chambers in the base are just wonderfully, grandiosely designed, and certainly give the game's last levels an epicness awareness of scope. Anyway, after Bond defuses a load of missiles and fights off an invisible army, I'm not kidding, Diavolo and Katia rear their ugly heads to have one last pop at him in a jet, which Bond destroys and our villains fall to their end. Or at least Katia does. Diavolo uses his ejector seat to make it through to the final level. Katia doesn't, apparently. But, you know, she didn't really have a good send-off, did she? Oh, okay, you know what, I'm sorry if I fixate on this aspect too much, but I love it when a Bond villain has a good death or an exciting final scene or something. I mean, if Kiko from the last game can have a pretty epic demise, then why can't Katia? Anyway, last level, aptly titled Everything or Nothing. Diavolo has one missile left and Bond must stop him by fighting through the largest set of enemies you'll have seen in the game so far. It's an intense bit of action, and I don't mind saying I find this level really quite difficult to beat, even on the easiest of difficulty settings. Eventually, Bond makes it outside for a final showdown with Diavolo.
This is where you die.
After respawning, Bond defeats Diavolo, who follows suit for villains in this game to have a rather non-dramatic death. Sorry for fixating on this again, folks. It's up to Bond to destroy the remaining missile, and that's it. Well done, Bond. Game complete.
You know, with the Kremlin sort of being invaded and platinum tanks and nanobots all around, you would think people would be on the streets, like fleeing. You wouldn't think it would just be completely, you know, barren. But then again, this is Russia. Everyone just probably got pissed on vodka. Lord knows I would if I was in Russia.
What happened?
They fell for each other.
And what about us? Oh, James. What was that for?
Call it a hint of bigger things to come.
Ugh, really? That's what we're going to end the game on? It's a bit lewd, isn't it? I mean, it's very Roger Moore. I'm sure he'd be proud. In fact, there we go. Another View to a Kill reference. The lewd, crude James Bond.
And just like in Nightfire, we end with credits and a nice little making-of featurette. Annoyingly, this one focuses solely on the voice cast and not the developers or designers. But hey, John Cleese is as eloquent as ever and seems to be really enjoying himself here, which makes it all the sadder that this will be his last real association with the franchise.
You know, we're missing making a movie this year, so the game is there.
Oh, John, you're not going to be making another Bond movie for the rest of your life, I'm afraid.
So, what's there to do post-game? Well, there are a few MI6 training scenarios to play with to the tune of a clubby version of Maya's Everything or Nothing. These can be a fun excursion. I just wish the environments weren't solely in this green wireframe mode. I swear I come away seeing lines everywhere. There's some unlockable art and photo packs, some unlockable cheats, and finally there's even a 2-player co-op mode. Oh wow! I bet everyone's going to fight over who gets to play Bond in this. Wait, what? What? You can't even play as Bond? Well, who can you play as then? Suggs, Lotus, Regina, and Feng? What the hell? Who are these people? Apparently you could unlock classic Bond characters and characters from the game with enough unlockables, but I've never had the spur to actually unlock them. I wonder if anyone told Heidi Klum she can't actually play as herself until she unlocks herself, because that seems to be the thing she was most excited about in that making of featurette.
I can't wait to play myself. To play myself. I wonder how that's gonna be.
For your sake, Heidi, I hope they gave you a special version of the game with your character already unlocked.
It's just not a very good mode. I never really hear people mentioning this feature when talking about this game, so I don't think it had much of an impact on anyone. It's just really strange. It's not especially good, and it has nothing to do with Bond. I guess they're all MI6 agents, as M is badgering away in your ear all the time, but It's such a weird afterthought and a poor excuse for a decent multiplayer feature.
Phew, okay, so that's a pretty exhaustive cover of this game, and you know what, I wasn't even able to go into detail on a lot of things because, well, this game is just so expansive and, well, big.
I never really realised until doing this review just how rich this game is in almost every aspect of its single-player adventure. There are so many features, so many options, so many ways of doing things. It's really quite incredible. The story is the most in-depth to have ever been created for a Bond game to this point, and it's paced and structured to be so close to the Bond movie formula. It stands, even now in 2014, as one of the best ever for a Bond game. The game's cast still stands also as one of the very best ensemble for a video game. Willem Dafoe brings a certain presence with his wonderfully accented voice, and Heidi Klum and Shannon Elizabeth are surprisingly not horrific. The same can't be said for Maya, who is definitely the weakest link of the game's cast. Her deliveries are kind of awkward and clunky, but she's hardly in the game, so it's not too bad. Judi Dench is perfect, as always. She really should do more voiceover work, because the voiceovers in these Bond games are really reliably excellent. Cleese, too, is wonderful. I wish some of his lines were a bit better. At one point he retorts to Bond by just saying, "Oh, grow up," which isn't the wittiest or most clever lines to have ever been written, but then this is a game, not a movie. There are different standards. And we come to Brosnan. You know, I don't think I've ever been terribly impressed with any of the voice actors for Bond during the Brosnan era in the games. They all just come away feeling very flat, Brosnan included. He's probably the best by default because, well, the man was Bond, but some of his readings are just bleh. He sounds almost as bored as Connery did in You Only Live Twice. His presence is welcome nonetheless, though, and helps the game's legitimacy as part of the official Bond canon. I will say here, though, that I've never understood anyone who says that they would like to see this story made into an official Bond film. This game goes way too sci-fi at times. If Die Another Day and Moonraker skirted the line of believability, then this game is in the friggin' stratosphere. Making this story and this cast into a Bond film would be a disaster. I think it goes too far at parts, even for a game. I don't think the production design of the game helps too much. There's very little here that actually looks like it would fit into the cinematic Bond universe. Like, the bit I complained about earlier with the platform coming out of the water, that's no more ludicrous than Atlantis coming out of the water in The Spy Who Loved Me, but the smooth, elegant, almost fantastical nature of Ken Adams' designs really makes the thing not believable, but palatable to the extent that we're willing to accept it in the reality of that particular film. But this is just, well, like I say, it's a leftover from a Star Wars game or some other sci-fi something. Which is a shame, as the game gets so many other Bond elements right. It's got the girls, the gadgets, the vehicles. However, it really does annoy me how when you die, blood doesn't trickle down the screen. I mean, of all the elements to miss, I can't believe they didn't carry over that feature from Nightfire.
So let's talk about the gameplay, shall we? I've said it before, I'm not a fan of third-person shooters. I much prefer first-person shooters, because those are the ones that I revisit more. I'm constantly playing Agent Under Fire and Nightfire, whereas Everything or Nothing, I don't tend to go back to it much.
However, the same cannot be said for the vehicle segments, which are incredible. These are the best vehicle levels in any Bond game to date, and I'm so glad they went all out to give us plenty of them. I would have loved another flying level, but, I'm just happy that we got one in the first place. New gameplay additions like hand-to-hand combat are welcome, and the array of gadgets you have in the field is impressive. The Q-Spider is a particular favourite of mine, and it makes for some unique gameplay moments. The whole invisibility suit is, well, you know what, it is the natural next step up from the invisible car, I suppose, but it just goes too sci-fi. It's not really a feature I use too much when I'm playing either, and to be honest, I'd completely forgotten it was even a feature until this playthrough. Rappelling down walls is terrific fun. There are plenty of secret areas to seek out, Bond moments to achieve, scores to beat. There's so much here, it's varied in depth, incredible game.
So if the game is really so great, why don't I come back to it that much?
It's impossible to not sing this game's praises. It deserves praise. A lot of time and effort and care and genuine love for the Bond series went into this game, and it certainly stands as one of the finest Bond games ever, but I just don't play it that much. I much prefer playing Nightfire, Agent Under Fire, GoldenEye Reloaded, because I'm more into first-person shooters than I am third-person shooters. And that's basically all it comes down to. But while I may not play the game a whole lot, every 2 or 3 years I will get the itch to play this game the whole way through, and you know, I always have a lot of fun. It's easy to immerse yourself in the world of 007 with Everything or Nothing, and I can see why so many of you guys name it as your #1 Bond video game. It's really a stunningly crafted piece of media. Which is not something I can say about the next game in this series we'll be looking at, which is, without a doubt, the strangest official Bond universe game I've ever played. Next time we'll be looking at GoldenEye Rogue Agent.